Hello again, once more. Welcome back to our Kerbal Space Program. Slightly different look to the intro this time. This is following on directly from the previous episode. This is the second half. It occurred to me. I need some revenue. Let's go fly some aircraft. How hard could that be? I really, really should have known better. Yeah, let's get on with it. Nothing particularly interesting, so what can we do now? I could unlock some aircraft. I mean, there are still these temperature survey missions, and below, so that's easy to do. Below. Do you know what? Right. We've got the space to take them. We're going to do some of these like that, which has given us a suitable size advance, but what I need to do in order to do it is that. And then spend a lot of the money we've just gained making an aeroplane. So let's go and let's have a quick attempt at making a plane. I'll do a little test flight in it. And then what we are going to do after that is wait for the next episode will be flying about. So what have we got here? Structure. I want one of those. Aero. I want a tail cone. I need a tail cone. I need a tail fin. Because everybody needs a tail fin. So I shall give it a tail fin. We need a couple of little winglets which go on the back, and then I need some wings which are going to go about there. Now what we now need to do, this is a little bit more complicated. I need the centre of lift to be ahead of that. What I also now need to do is stick some engines on, of course. So fuel tanks are going to be these little things, which are rather nice. They can go into the wings. So you can adjust where your centre of gravity is with this. I'm actually going to put them there. Engines, we have the little Jumo that sits on the back. Aerodynamics, we now have a little air intake, which is the thing we lacked when we attempted to do this. And that'll now fly. It's got controls on the back. It hasn't got controls on the main wings, which it needs. So what I'm going to do is put a pair of elevons on the wings, which as always need rotating because it never quite gets there. And then we need a way of getting this off the ground. Well, the nose wheel's an easy one because that goes near the nose. These tail wheels, a little bit more interesting. They need to go quite far back. Basically, you want them around where the centre of gravity is. A bit here, because if you... we'll see. Not there. Not there. They need to be like that, but then moved. Move that engine. I'm going to drag it down a little bit. Basically, they need to be stable, so I'm going to do that. Right. Drop out that. Up here. Plane 1. So we're not going to do much of this. What we're going to do now is I'm going to strap I'll strap a thermometer on it because I know I'm going to need that for this mission. We have to take some temperature readings, so I'm going to do that. And because I am an abject coward, what I'm also going to do is strap a couple of parachutes on the top like that. So we can activate the engines, and at some point I can activate the parachutes. Right, save. Let's go fly. Let's try and go fly. Let's see how this goes. The one thing I do know is trying to fly off this runway is seldom a good idea. So what I'm going to do, activate the engines. And what we're going to do is go off the runway and take off on some nice smooth grass. It should work. I'm not doing any of the missions with this. I'm simply going to attempt to see what I'm doing. I'll probably work out what the brake key is at some point as well. Might not be a bad idea. Right. We shall see how long before this can get airborne, if indeed it can get airborne. Hopefully it can. I think I've got some controls messed up somewhere, because that's flying, but only just. So yes, I can... Yes, the controls of that are completely messed up, so what I'm going to do is that and abort. For some reason that's decided it... yeah. Okay. Yes. I'm not going to call that one a success. There's something a little bit strange going on with the controls there. So I've got that bit back. Jeb survived, that's the main thing. So recover that. Recover that. I've got no idea what that is. Oh. That's more of the plane came down there. Plane debris, right. I'm curious now as to exactly what happened with that. So... they're on, but... See, that should work, so if I do that... So, all they're on is... roll. That. All they're on is pitch... Do you wish this... Yeah. Yes, anyway, never mind. And all that is on is going to be yaw. So let's try that again. Before I go anywhere, I'm going to see if I can get the controls. There's something very strange there. There's the way of getting the handbrake on. Right, anyway, so that just does the tail fins. That does what it needs to, and roll. Does roll. Brakes, because I can't recover if I'm moving. I need to reset these controls slightly. There's something very strange going on there. Let's have another little... Let's go into that and reset. Right. Ow! I was never trying to set these up to do anything. It does that. Right. So... those on yaw as well. I want... I will get used to how to do this one of these days. You can tell I've played this before, can't you? Well, put that on so it's vertical. Right. Pitch and... so that's going to be roll as well. So. Save. Try that again. What I'm trying to get it to is so the ailerons on the wings aren't fighting the elevators, which is what they were doing. Okay. Just notice we're rolling here when I've not actually done anything else. We shall see. I'm just going to let it roll down this little hill. You can make rocket-powered, well, jet-powered cars using this stuff as well, which is potentially a little bit interesting sometimes. I'm just going to roll down here a little bit more slowly. And hopefully this time I've got a little bit more control to make it go up. Get the nose up slightly. Come on, nose up, nose up, nose up. I suspect I've got my engines too far forwards. I think what the problem is here. So the thing has a huge tendency to pitch downwards. So what I'm going to do again is cut the engines. See, now I can fly it. Parachutes again. Because I think my chances of landing it are somewhat remote. So here we go. On the plus side, Jeb doesn't have very far to swim because it's nice and shallow here. And these aircraft are largely recoverable as long as it doesn't do what the last one did. That is quite impressive. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but tell it to recover. That's possibly because it's rolling around. There we are. I'm going to move the engines. I'm going to put the engines near the back or under the wings. They're obviously pitching it down. Grab hold of that. See, this is the fun bit of this game, is trying to work out how on earth to make things do what you want them to. So put that on, put that on, put that on. Yeah, I suspect that that's part of the problem. I need to either put those back here or possibly there. That looks a bit better. Looks a bit angrier anyway. Okay, try again. It's very much turning into an episode of the Wrong Brothers. We shall see. So straight off is rotate. Zoom in a bit and just going to wait until I'm down this little hill again, and then we shall try to take off. You sort of need to play around with the controls a little bit. Aircraft are much easier to fly using a joystick rather than the keyboard. This should go up shortly. Come on, up you go. There we go. And as the speed increases, we've got a little bit more control and we can actually go upwards. Look at that, we're going up slowly. What I need to do, however, is start a little bit of a turn. Because at the moment I can't actually control this thing very well at all. And I'm going to try for a landing. I'm going to try for a landing on land in the vague hope we don't explode on contact with the water again. I'll cut engines back so that we're going too fast. Level out, or try to. Yes, as you can tell, this is not working brilliantly. I need to go and I need to possibly a little bit more experimentation on this. This was supposed to be some fairly cheap missions. Yeah, anyway, never mind. So back over land, cut engines, deploy parachutes. Which are obviously not... I've got the tail ones in the wrong place anyway now as well, which is why we're we're nose down so much. Can switch the engines off properly, as well as just makes it a little bit quieter as we gently descend back to yeah, anyway, we're sort of over here, a little bit of a hill. Gonna put the handbrake on just in case. You can retract landing gear, and there are lights as well, which I've not hitherto used. Yes. Anyway, let's just let's see how bad this landing gets. The cockpit's quite robust, which is probably just as well, really. Bidink. There we are. Down. Yes. I'm not going to call that my most successful of missions. Is there anything else in here that might be useful? Yeah, in theory that might be possible now. We've got some of the aircraft stuff. I'm going to leave off that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at that for today. So thank you for everyone for watching. Tune in next time for more episodes of Leopard Can't Make a Plane That Flies. Yes, anyway. Have a good day, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Okay, here we are, back. I can't leave well alone. Never mind. I've had a thought or two. First, I found a controller, which I think might help, possibly significantly here. I'm also going to take those fins off. I'm going to go with those fins, which I think have a bit more control authority. On the staging there, scrolling back on, and with a bit of luck, are going to work slightly better. So what I'm going to do let's try this again. This I'm going to try it with the controller and see if I can actually fly the thing. So first thing I need to do is get behind and have a little look. So I have rudder axis, I have that, and then I have roll. Okay, so the first thing to do is that, so I can start engines. I should probably put the brakes and stuff on this as well, shouldn't I, really? Oh, never mind. I've got them on the keyboard. Yeah, so yeah, I found a control. It's not a proper joystick. It's not the flight stick I used to use for playing this when I was messing around with the Kerbal Simpit stuff, but we shall see. Right, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to throttle up, and I'm going to try to lift off, ideally without destroying myself in the process. Ooh. Okay, this one now flies. Not, I won't say it flies brilliantly, but it flies. So I think next up is going to be what I'm after. Ideally is the what I want is the chase camera where I stay focusing behind the thing. So there's a locked one, I think. So if I do that, hopefully now, yeah, that's better. Slightly. Okay, let's try. Yay! Yeah, anyway. This is going to take a little bit of getting used to, so I'm going to turn that and pitch around. What I want to do is find somewhere relatively flat and try and land. That basically means heading back to where we started from. Yeah, emphasis on try and land. I'm not saying I'm going to land, I'm going to try and land. Yeah, I may need to I may need to look into control sensitivity a little bit here. Yeah. Engine positioning and all that good stuff. At least it gets off the ground now, though. This is the main thing. And yes, I need to try and shed a little bit of velocity here and try to hold steady. Yeah. Stability on that might help. Trying all that without the stability controls. Now I've got them, I think it's helping. Alright. Still a little bit high. I'm going to turn my altimeter into a radar one, which I think will help. That, and then what we're going to do pitch up slightly and basically, I want to try. Well, I don't exactly want to stall, but I want to shed a little bit more speed. And come down like this. And then brakes. Now, I don't have reverse thrust available on this particular one. Right, I'm just going to apologies for the screen going black now. I've got Windows does what Windows likes to do and puts up a notification, and yeah. Right, so that worked. So now what I've got to do is go and do some of these temperature studies. So, yeah, a little bit of money there. What have we got in missions? Nothing interesting. Right. So, what I need to do is find out... No, wrong one. That one. I think I'll find out where these... Where are the other ones? Oh, the other one's all the way... Yeah, okay, so I've got some to do all the way over there and some to do all the way over here. Now, the ones over here are probably a little bit easier to get to. Right, okay, so what we're going to do is we go into that, we go back into here. No, we don't. We go back into here. Oh, so I can take off from the island airfield. That's interesting. Didn't realise I could do that. So what I'm then going to do is map view. I'm going to come into here and I'm going to say that activate navigation. And I've got to get there below 18.5 kilometres. Well, that won't be hard to do. Staying below 18.5 I think will be quite straightforward. And when we get there, I've got to do a temperature reading, which means keeping that to hand. Right. So, engines on. Very small amount of thrust and turn round. Now the navigation thing I've just activated should put a target on this nav ball. It'll tell me when I'm pointing in the right direction. We will see, because I know I've got to turn around and face the other way. I want the camera in locked mode so I can go around here. Whee! Round we go, round we go, round we go. And here comes a blue marker on there to tell me that is where I have to go. So we're going to do that. We're going to line up roughly in the right direction, because you might as well take off pointing in the right direction. Throttle up and we'll see how far we get. Place your bets. That was nice and smooth. I wasn't expecting that, but anyway, there we go. So since I'm going to be going over those mountains, I'm going to get a little bit of altitude here, and we shall see. You can have a lot of fun flying planes in this. Building them. I mean, people build ships and all sorts, and you start wondering: is this a space exploration game, or is this something else? But yeah. We're going to fly. Hopefully I've got the range. To get to the other ones I might actually have to go a little bit further. But we shall see. So we'll maintain a little gentle pitch up here. Not be too far. Again, if I can get it up, get the thing into the air a little bit further, the air resistance drops. And what I've got to do here is do these 3 temperature points and then land. Because these ones are actually on land, you could actually do this with a ground vehicle. I probably wouldn't advise it, just because hills like this don't really work with ground vehicles. But again, I want to bring that up. And just gently, just make sure I'm pointing in the right direction. It's been a long time since I've flown anything in a video game. It probably shows. We are turning slowly, and the game will tell me when I'm in that that area. There we are, now entering, so log temperature. That's that one. And what it's now done, very helpfully, just persuade this to turn slightly. It's entered the coordinates to go to the next one, which is rather good. Over this way somewhere. Like a lot of these things, as I said before, this can get a little bit grindy. But it's very, very pretty terrain. So we shall see how far away we are from this. And then turn for the third point, and then turn for home. And collect all that lovely cash. And potentially... I may have to put a bit more fuel in for the other one. Well, I'm going to try. Obviously, this being Kerbal, it's quite easy to put rocket boosters and all sorts of things on planes. Let's see how far are we away from the point. Yeah, see, a little way to go yet. There's a holding full throttle here. Might as well stick with. And then obviously landing. Can do what I did before. I can either try and land manually back at base, or I can just chicken out and use the parachutes. approaching where we need to be. There we are in the next area there, so log temperature, overwrite, reset, that'll do. And we do actually get some science for that as well, which is quite good. So let's go and find the third point. Over here somewhere. It's interesting to note I did actually get some science there, which I'm rather unfortunately I can't keep because I need to go and do this other mission. But there we go. There's obviously where you could stick multiple thermometers on the aircraft and do it that way. That'll do. Now, as mentioned Kerbal Simpit before, I do have a little joystick controller which I really will have to set up and get going again. There's also wonderful things you can do with that because it gets a lot of this information. For example, you can program a little bit of a basic autopilot, you know, hold wings level, hold altitude, hold pitch, adjust throttle, hold speed, that sort of thing. You've got to play around a lot with the coding to do it, but it works, or it can work. So this one here is going to take us a little bit longer to get down to this next one. So I'm going to keep quiet and put this in fast forward for you, and I'll catch you when we've done the collection. So yes, that's grabbed the final science point, so let's head vaguely back home and try and land reasonably near the space center. Not bothered about it being exact. When you land, the nearer you are to your one of your space centers or runways, the more parts you recover, the more funding you recover. So there is a reason for doing it. So I shall just fly back over to there, and I'm probably going to go with a parachute landing because I don't want to blow everything up after we've completed the mission. And then I've got to look at getting on the next mission, which I think... Now we've gone from there to there. The other one's over here somewhere, so I'm not quite sure how. I suspect I may need a little bit more fuel for that. There's a simple way of doing it: is I can replace the centre fuselage of the aircraft with a larger fuel tank. It does obviously make it a bit heavier, but yeah, can do that and burn the fuel tank. Didn't realise they'd done that enhancement. I see there's trees down below. There never used to be. I've not got any mods installed. They've obviously done in the later versions of the game with the detail settings turned up. They've obviously added a few things like that in, which I think looks quite nice. I'm starting to get the aero effects on the aircraft there, so I'm just throttling back a little bit. You can see the space centre in the distance over here. So we are headed in roughly the right direction. If I go more, a little bit more this way, we can get it slightly off to the side and land sort of vaguely where we want to get to land. Set that back to the radar altimeter, as that's a lot more useful. You can see not far off the 300,000 though, having done that. 300,000 obviously being to upgrade the tracking station, give me the mission planning. I say I want about 350 because I want enough to be able to launch another rocket or two at that point. But that point then makes Mun orbit missions a lot easier to do, which will mean going out there with the Science Junior and so on and so forth will be a lot easier, as well as a lot safer. The beauty is the ground next to the Space Centre is actually flat, which is nice. And there goes the parachutes. Yes, the landing gear deciding it didn't particularly fancy partaking any further. Yes, so that's that flight. Yes, I've sort of fixed the aircraft slightly. Yes. Yeah, a little bit over. Have we got any more on here? 6 tourists their destination. Yes, you see this. There's a lot of money involved in that. And it is technically possible. I could do one with the with the little crew capsule. The 6 said it'd be 3 flights. It's a lot of money. They don't give you anything up front though. Yeah, why not? We'll try that. So the next one is this other atmospheric surveys mission, which I think the aircraft needs a little bit of modification for. Not much. I'm going to take that parachute off, because that's definitely not needed. Take that off. Yeah, somewhat frustratingly. Take that off, which is the bit I need to change, so that gets rid of everything. Fuel tanks. Mark 1 liquid fuel fuselage, which is there and there. And we have to rebuild with other wings. Wings are always good. Wings do work. Put those there. There are some, as I say, these which are worth looking at. So that is the centre of lift, that is the centre of mass. Centre of mass needs to be ahead of it to be stable, but you don't necessarily want it too far ahead of it. So come down here like that. And the wheels, well, I have to put the engines on first. The wheels need to be reasonably near that, otherwise what you find is you can't pitch up properly with the aircraft, which becomes a little bit of a problem. I'm actually going to put the engines a little bit further out. And then I need to move them. Yeah, down a bit and back a bit, I think. That'll do. Reason for yeah, I want them lower because it makes the craft a bit more controllable. Engines, put a basic jet engine on it. There's absolutely nothing stopping you making rocket-powered aircraft in this, other than the fact you'll find the fuel runs out far too quickly to do anything with them. So put those like that. No, again. No. What I'm wanting is the wheels level like that, but then obviously that's far too low. So then what we do is grab the wheels and drag them down a bit like that. And possibly in a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So that's now the slightly heavier version. But it's got more fuel and more range. It is going to be somewhat underpowered. How many parts have I got there? Got plenty of parts. It is almost tempting actually to stick 2 more engines on the thing. Yeah, I do need the parachutes, however. And I do need the parachutes. So I'm going to put, not drogues, on proper ones. I'm going to put a pair of parachutes. About there, a little bit back, so we're staying those up. Right, Let's go do the second temperature mission, which should see us have enough money to go and try and do a MUN passenger flight in the next episode. So start the engines up. The reason for not trying to take off on the runway is the runway is far, far, far too bumpy to do that. Oh, it's possible, it's just way too bumpy. Activate navigation that way. And we can turn around here nice and slowly. As you saw, this undercarriage is a little bit vulnerable. And because of how far away this next one is, I will be using the parachute landing method. I'll just land over there somewhere. Yeah, so change that to be chase. Chase do what I want it to. Chase doesn't do what I want it to. Locked does, however. Like that. Zoom in a bit. So, brakes off. Engines to power, and off we go. And from last time, this thing used to get off the air at about 60, 70. Whoa, 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 whoa. What on earth happened there? Stability on, brakes on. Okay, we seem to have a little bit of drift off to the side there. I suspect that's my fault for not putting the stability control on, so we shall try again. Keep trying, never mind. Launch. Everything aerodynamically on the aircraft should be fine. So let's have a little look. So, stability on. Locked view on. Zoom in a bit like that. Runway launch. Yeah, that's the runway issue. So I'll recover that and try again. This time I will go off onto the grass, however. So, yes, runway. I have plane 1. No description available. Yeah, it'll do. Okay. Launch. There we go. So yes, that side-to-side oscillation there is, I think, the runway. So that, stability on, a little bit of thrust, and off we go. Let's go find something softer to drive on. And again, reset the navigation, so that appears nicely on the screen as well. The radar altimeter is probably more useful. Yeah, the joys of aircraft in Kerbal. They're not particularly robust. Locked like that. Zoom in again. The zooming in, it just helps, really. So let's go down here straight. Turn this way slightly, because if we turn this way we've got more ground to use. Okay, why? There's something not right with the aircraft's steering controls. Right. Brakes on. Engine fully down. What the hell is wrong with this front wheel? Steering enabled, wheel stress, friction control, steering direction normal? Yes, yeah, wrong button. So of course that resets everything else again. Okay. Brakes off, pointing in a given direction. Stability on. Let's see if we can get airborne again. Nope, for whatever reason that is now just oscillating like crazy on trying to launch it. It's a novel one to have a little look at. I don't normally get that as a problem. Okay, so let's see what else I can do with this. There is something not right here. So if I go into control... I may put one of those there, like so. And then... pair of wing struts just to see if that helps. Shouldn't be needed. I mean, this sort of thing should actually fly. I mean, the strut's white. That's nice. Can it say that? Have I actually? Launch. Yeah, I was going to select the other airfield, but it won't let me. So, something, yeah. I'm wondering whether what I need to do is take off on manual and then put the stability on afterwards. Because this front wheel doesn't seem to be doing what I want it to. And then try the navigation again. Map. And the camera to locked. So and we're sliding around a little bit here, but go. Not sure why we're not. Stability on. Let's see what that does. Stability off. So we should now be pointing in the same direction with no control inputs whatsoever. Okay, I have got no idea what on earth is stopping that from getting off the ground. I don't know why it's oscillating like crazy, which it shouldn't be. So let's have a little look. I think the lift's quite far back. Let's try. Just the weird thing is you tend to put canards on these things and they fly a lot better. I don't like that because I don't like the look of the thing. So why? Place. So that fairly obviously isn't doing what I needed it to. So back on there. Could it be the amount of extra fuel that's in that? Let's just drop that down so we've got some extra, but not a vast amount extra. Try that. So, engines on. A bit of thrust, turn sideways. It could just be as simple as the craft weight's causing problems. Yeah, let's have a little look. You can sometimes get into brakes, wheel stress, friction control. Yeah, well, I want. See, again here, what we've got is we are. I see, I've got no input there telling that thing to turn, and we are turning like crazy. Stability, it'll try and counter it. Shouldn't be the problems with the engine positions. Okay. Try again. If I can get the thing into the air, I'll be relatively happy. Well, answers on a postcard for that one. I'm going to try with the engines centered a bit better. I mean, maybe that'll help. I don't know. There's something. There's definitely something very strange going on here. It could be engine related. I don't know. We'll see. If I take those engine pods and put them back there. Try that. All I can think is if I've got slightly different thrust from the engines for some reason, which is possible. I mean, it could happen. And maybe having the engines more towards the centre will work. I mean, the previous iteration of this flew quite nicely, so it sort of makes me think it's got to be. Oh no! Idiot! I know exactly what the problem is. Now there are probably people screaming at it. Where are the ailerons? Yes, that's. So the trim control can't handle stability that way because some Burke didn't put the didn't give it the necessary control surfaces. So yeah, okay. Let's do that. Save. And this time I'm going to go back to giving it a full tank of fuel. Yes, it's going to make it heavier, but I do want to make sure I've actually got the range to get where I need to get to. This is the thing. So I now have a roll axis available to me. Right. Stability on, engines on, a little bit of thrust to get us around off the runway. And we will see whether or not it works this time. Hopefully it does. So go back to that, to there. Just being a little optimistic setting the nav ball, but you never know, it might work. So locked camera basically you can use to give you the little I'm a flight simulator type view. Down we go. Sliding a little bit because it's on a hill. There we go. And let's come to a complete halt just to start off. That off. And let's see whether this is any better now. Hopefully. Okay, that is fairly obviously there's something seriously wrong there. The only thing I can think of is weight, hence why the wheels are bouncing so much, and there isn't really a lot I can do about that. You control the friction on them, which you sort of well, yeah, you sort of need it to be where it is. Right, I'm going to drop the fuel in there right down. And we're going to try that and see if that helps. Can't believe how many attempts I'm having here to not get an aeroplane off the ground. Okay, so engines on. Try again. It would help if you didn't have this annoying have to taxi onto the grass because the runway is useless. I sort of see why they want you to have a reason to upgrade the runway, but to be honest, it is a bit infuriating. There's something wrong with the steering as well on this. Because whatever happens, it's not accepting the steering inputs properly. Right. Let's go to full stop again. Stability off. Let's try it without. Okay. Landing angle's different anyway. I'm at a bit of a loss here. This is an extremely basic aircraft design. I can't see why it doesn't work. Okay. Canard version. Try that. Should work, at least in pitch anyway. Whether we there's something wrong with the landing gear, I suspect, but I don't know what. So try again. I wasn't getting this problem at all earlier, whereas now all brakes. A little look here, what's going on. cable is there. Steering inverted shouldn't be a problem. So we'll be going sideways. Friction control auto. Turn the friction off entirely. Let's see if that does anything. I mean, wheels and Kerbal Space Program have never been particularly good bedfellows, shall we say. That was a slightly too vicious pitch up that caused that particular problem. Yeah. But it did seem a lot more stable, so... Okay, next. The frustrating thing is this is burning through an awful lot of money, which I don't really want to do. Let's take that off. Delete it. And then put it back on again. Right at the very front. Save that. Try again. I see whether it's possible whether resetting the steering system helps. That, a little bit of thrust, and away we go. And we're on the wheel's got to be doing the steering because we're on the ground. There isn't anything else that can do steering while we're on the ground at low speed. The rudder won't do anything until we get a bit of speed up. And then again we're sliding all over the place. Stability on, brakes off. Lock that, so I'm pointing roughly the right direction. To just make it so I'm not pointing at that incline, otherwise we will crash into it. Okay, and then brakes full again. Stability off, stability back on, and we are centered. Brakes off, full throttle. Try again. This time with a slightly more gentle up angle. Right. So again, that was going all over the place again. Right. I have at least got off the ground this time, so activate navigation map. And let the speed pick up and we should be alright. Right, so I've now got quite a long distance to go. I'm going to see whether I've got enough fuel to get there. I'm going to hit speed up on the video, and I will catch you when I either run out of fuel or I get where I'm going. Yeah, one of the real problems with using aircraft, especially early on with these piddly little engines, it takes a really long time to get anywhere. Just like, hence why I'm speeding this up. Yeah, and then to cap it all, there's a bit of a goof later, which you may see, which I genuinely only really realised when I got to the end point. Still, never mind. It's fun. You notice here occasionally I'm dropping out of high speed warp and then going back in again. What I'm doing is the aircraft is holding itself into the same position, and of course Kerbin's round, so as a while that generally turns into pitch up. So it's a case of just slow back down, pitch down again, so I'm going horizontal, and then speed up again. Rinse and repeat. Occasional checks of the map file for how much longer is this going to take, and are we nearly there yet moments. This is really where some sort of autopilot comes into its own. If you just tell it, look, just fly me there, and I'll let me know when you're done. Anyway, we're nearly there, so I will leave you and back with what passes for the action. Yeah. Okay, we should be nearly approaching where I'm trying to get to. Nearly. At least I hope so, because we're just about out of fuel. There, yeah, we should be very, very nearly there. Hopefully. I very much doubt I'm going to be able to do all three of these on this flight, which is slightly annoying. There we are. Log temperature. Done that. Reset. Okay, so we now have the next one is this way apparently. So, and I've just noticed what it says up here. See what it says there? Take pressure readings. See what it says there? Thermometer. Yeah. So like a complete and utter moron, I've just flown all the way out here with a craft that can't actually do the mission. So, yeah. Temperature scan while flying over Kerbin's water. Yeah, I'll have that. Bugger. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the spaceplane hangar and start again, and I will catch everybody in the next one. Yes, thank you for watching. Likes, comments, subscriptions, sarcastic laughter. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. I may cry quietly now.